Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming. I just want to let you know that there are comment sheets put on the tables when the presentation is finished. If you could fill those out, they're optional, but we would appreciate it. Thank you so much. Enjoy.
All right. Aloha. That's it? Nothing? No energy? Aloha. All right. We're getting there. All right. Well, I'm Dan Malakie. I'm the Director of Safety and Standardization for Paradise Helicopters out of Hawaii. As you can see, topic, translating safety into budget dollars. So it's kind of interesting. I think we bring something a little bit different to the table as far as the size of our operation, what we do, and how we were able to implement this safety management system program. So that's kind of our edge. A little bit about myself. I went to Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. Went into the United States Army for 8 years, flew Black Hawks doing medical evacuation. Was in Korea for a year and a half, in Iraq for a year, in Afghanistan for a year. And talk about trying to mitigate the risk, right? Medevac had a 250-person company for southern Afghanistan. And so you mitigate it the best you can. How do you mitigate small arms fire, RPG, all that stuff? And then I become the Director of Safety and Standardization, and I hear that there's a budget. Like, what's this budget word, right? So Darren over here, he's our CFO, so here I am asking, hey, I'm gonna probably need about 10 grand this year for safety, and oh, by the way, I need you to pay for my budget or my salary as well, and all those fun things. So how do you do that, right? So how do you do that being a small operator? And it doesn't matter that really the size of your business. The intent is all the same. We all want the same thing. We have a responsibility as well to implement a safe, effective SMS program within the entire industry. So we'll talk a little bit about that today, answer any questions. I have a few people that are going to say a few things to kind of back up my theories here, I guess you could say. And we'll tell a little story. So let's go ahead and get started here. Let's see if I can figure this thing out now. All right. And I'm trying to get this to... Yeah. Let's see. All right. Well, that's awesome, right? Well, we'll try to get some help here, and we'll get back to that. But Paradise Helicopters, family-owned business from Hawaii. We have 11 aircraft. The important key being is a family-owned business. So the values are a little bit different than maybe a bigger business, and the importance level for different topics is a little bit different. but spread out across the Big Island of Hawaii, on Oahu, and the budget, we don't have a huge budget. So how are we gonna do this SMS program? So this actually took place, as you can see, 25 July 2013, and this is what you can still see if you look up Paradise Helicopters online from time to time. You're gonna scroll down eventually, this is what's gonna show up. So great branding, right? If you wanna go on a tour, that's what you see. So yeah, it hurts the ego a little bit, but that's reality. And the only way that you're gonna be effective is to learn from it and to find a positive way to grow from it. So let's go ahead and take a look. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about our history for Paradise Helicopters, how we got to that point, where we're at, some of the different perceptions of safety. It's interesting to hear at these conferences the different perceptions everyone has on ways to show value. We talked about value today. Have growth within the safety management system. So pretty neat. And then Darren Hamilton will be helping out today, showing some of the financial benefits. He's our CFO for Paradise Helicopters. Serkan was actually one of our auditors for a few of our different things, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And then I have an array of really qualified insurance guys that love to talk about this kind of stuff. So they're going to be chiming in today too, and just try to show the benefit here. So really what I ultimately hope for is whether you have an effective program in place already or you're looking to implement one, that you can learn from this. Most importantly, the times are a little bit tough, and they're going to be tougher for other businesses. So there are going to be budget cuts. Everyone's trying to find another way to become more efficient, to save money. So how do you do that? Well, while you do that, how do you promote safety and continue to maintain that budget that you have for your safety program to keep your company safe and to stay effective? So that's the ultimate goal that I hope everyone can take away from today. So Paradise Helicopters, when that accident occurred, was in the midst of a rapid growth. We were just adding 3 new helicopters to our inventory, starting to really kind of move in different directions with different bases. Right now we have 3 major bases of operation across the Hawaiian Islands. The pilot was a military pilot who had the mishap. We'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. With over 3,000 hours, a combat veteran, and was actually slotted to take over as a safety officer for the company. High op tempo, like we talked about, and July actually being the highest gross revenue for the company. So we're in this rapid growth, but not enough of measures and procedures in place to safely execute. So let's keep moving here. So this is the NTSB report from the National Transportation Safety Board. Bottom line is a loss of engine power due to the pilot's improper planning and mismanagement of the fuel supply, which resulted in fuel exhaustion. The light came on, low fuel light, 5 to 7 minutes. The passenger challenged the pilot. Pilot kept flying and ran out of fuel. Auto-rotated. Everyone survived, no major injuries. But huge event, big failure, right? So from that, a lot of different things come out and a lot of different perceptions come out. How did this happen? You start asking yourself, how did this happen? How do we get to this point that we have a pilot with 3,000 hours, from the United States military who's been through tons of training, always getting check rides, get to this point where we have a pilot that does this? What if it was me? How do you think your safety culture feels? However much money you invested into this, how does everybody feel? What are the other pilots now thinking? What failed so distinctly for it to happen? Where was the shortfall? What were we as leaders within the organization, what were we doing to promote safety and implement procedures? Just amazing. Talked about procedures, and now you really start to look at your SMS program. Where's our SMS program, our safety management system program? How effective is it? Do we just kind of buy into the SMS program, and now we're not really doing anything with it. There are ways to be effective, and there are ways to take your safety management system, implement new procedures, and really train and teach the organization how to correct hazards. And we'll talk about that in a minute. So what is the immediate ramifications on the company? So we had naturally a loss in profit, a negative effect with our vendor relationship. It's hard to get business, hard to have people sell Paradise helicopters after that. Trust for the insurance providers, they weren't too happy. We don't have an aircraft operating, and the inability to grow. So you can kind of see some of the immediate, these are numbers that are relative to us, which in a large industry might not be as impactful, but for a smaller tour company, you can imagine that's pretty huge when it comes to our bottom dollar. So normal operating costs, at least $10,000. Your referrals, insurance deductible, and then you're just dropping net internet sales and SEOs. So we're saying around $100,000, and that's just still the unknown. You don't know. There could still be people that look at that online and they don't book their tour with us anymore. Yes, sir?
You want us to ask questions along the way?
Yeah, absolutely.
How long did you cease operations? Did you say?
I think it was a couple of days at least.
Just the rest of the day.
Yeah, just the initial day.
And then,
But we did have a result where people were calling and asking, well, we don't necessarily want to fly with you after the event.
and then how about airframe loss?
That was out for,
It was a CTL. It was total.
But it was covered by the insurance company. Okay, all right, so you just your deductible.
right. Now, these numbers were naturally just for, passengers were still alive and no major injuries. Now, you can imagine if there was a loss of life, where that would have put us. It potentially would have went bankrupt and the company wouldn't be here anymore.
What are the other costs on there? So loss of insurance deductible, did that negatively affect your premiums then as well for the next year renewal?
I think they kind of,
We'll get
right.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I don't want to steal their thunder. They got all kinds of fun stuff to tell you.
And then how about the loss in that revenue producing unit? Projected loss.
That'd probably be a good.
It's one of those weird situations that's so, true to the aviation industry. We actually added another hull in a partially built up status. So when we got the total, we actually negotiated the buyout and used that cash to outfit that other hull. And so we placed the capacity actually very
Now,
well.
I'm just sort of thinking that all things going on this is on day 3 when you started business up again, though, you didn't have that unit ready to produce profit. So there's
Yeah,
a
it
chunk of money
was about
lost, too.
6 weeks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's not criticism. I'm just sort of trying
Yeah.
to
No,
all the
it-
things that go in
Right.
this.
No, yeah.
And you're absolutely right. That's the point of being here, is to take that unknown and not just say, oh yeah, it's an unknown, so we're not going to talk about it. Let's talk about it. Let's look at the real deal here. Okay, so the findings: pilot judgment, naturally, a lack of procedures within the organization, safety management system program and procedures were weak, and the safety leadership was lacking. All things that anyone that's an operator in this room could be experiencing right now. If you look within your organization and see where you're actually at, and you really scrutinize your organization, and you look and say, we do need a safety program, and we need someone to run that safety program. I mean, that's where we were, and we were kind of just playing the game as we had to, but didn't take a serious look at it. So as you know, the Swiss cheese model, right? So organizational factors, there was a loss there. Unsafe supervision, the preconditions for unsafe acts, all leading to that accident. They're all there. I mean, you can go through that, each one of those, and you can find a failure where somewhere in our organization, procedurally, we weren't doing the right thing. Whether it's training, whether it's checking our pilots as they're conducting their flight, challenging our pilots, and that's what we do now. So after answering the federal FAA inquiries, we asked ourselves, what's the goal? So you go through this reflection on the company, and you're kind of asking yourself what happened, and now you say, where are we going to go from here? What are we going to do? Are we just going to close the doors and call it? What are we going to do? Well, you have to take that look, and you have to really figure out what you want to do, and you need to strive to do that. So naturally, we want to be the premier helicopter tour company in Hawaii, and the personnel and procedures to support that. And that's where SMS came in for us. Implementing a director of safety and standardization position to be held by an aviator. The previous position was not held by an aviator. It was actually held by just a regular ground crew member that we had. How are we going to evaluate our SMS? So you could have a very easy SMS program. Someone could stand out there with a clipboard and just write away what they see and try to implement procedures. But how effective is that? What are you doing to challenge your organization? How are you showing value with that safety management system program? Okay, so this is where we're at right now. This is where Paradise Helicopters, since that accident. We're proud to say that we've implemented a safety management system program. We received our stage 1 from ISBAO, the International Standard of Business Aircraft Operations. And just recently, this past year, became the stage 2, or received our stage 2 certification, which we're now the second company in the state of Hawaii to actually hold the stage 2, and the first on the Big Island, Hawaii. And we're very proud that we actually became the first company in the world to receive the Helicopter Association International accreditation. Pretty amazing, going from not really having a program to really implementing the program and bringing out the value in it. And it's paid dividends for us. Most importantly, for us, the family-owned business, having the peace of mind in our systems and procedures and personnel. Peace of mind. Can you go home and sleep at night knowing that your company's safe? That might be something you ask yourselves. So what have we learned? It doesn't happen overnight. You can go spend all the money in the world, but we talked about that just culture. We talked about values. We talked about all those things earlier this morning, so I won't beat a dead horse, but it's not going to happen overnight. And it's important that it starts at the top and it works its way all the way down throughout your systems. It's not cheap, especially for us. We don't have all the money in the world. It's not the United States military with an endless budget. It's not easy. You are going to have resistance to change. You're going to be challenged. And it's difficult. It can be difficult. And you're going to lose some battles along the way. But it's important that you continually try to show some growth. And the known hazards must not be ignored. That's the easiest part. We can all just go home, forget about whatever it was, and let it work itself out. Or you really face that hazard head on, and you take the time and the money and the effort to fix it and mitigate it. So this is kind of a cool graphic. You got your bankruptcy on the top, your safety in the middle, and a catastrophic event. So how do you, if you're trying to run a safety program, how do you manage that? How do you find the balance? How do you work with whoever owns the business and your CFO, and how do you find the balance between going bankrupt and having a catastrophic event? So that's kind of where we're trying to get to right now. So how do you translate safety into budget dollars? There's so many different ways you can promote safety, but there's so many wrong ways to promote safety. And you hear it sometimes in some of the briefings, and you hear it sometimes within an organization. Safety is a revenue protector. Okay, what's that? Where's that get us? What am I going to get out of it? And really, ultimately, what's the goal? Where are we going to be from that? I need money for safety. There's no plan, and there's no safety officer. So all different wrong ways to approach safety and to actually try to promote safety and try to get everyone's buy-in to try to get an effective program. All right, so Darren Hamilton, he's our CFO. He's going to come up real quick and just talk a little bit about, from the financial side of things, what he's seeing. Thanks.
I'm not allowed to have a microphone. Is this working all right? All right. Yeah, I guess I'm the guy who puts the F in CFO. So if you've ever had to ask for money, I'm the guy who has to say no, right? But I was conditioned by that incident there. I'd been in the job 6 months. The mishap pilot was a close friend of mine in the Marines, and he made this mistake that just was inconceivable to anybody at the time. So remember, you hear what people say, you don't know what you don't know, right? Well, when we did all of our risk metrics at the time, we thought weather and other aircraft were always at the top. Running out of gas never entered the equation. Well, blue skies, perfect day. Guy pushes a bad situation. He autos into a field next to the airport. And thank God it didn't end up on YouTube, right? I think of 2 incidents right now in the past 3 months that have been on YouTube. With the ubiquitous nature of the internet, that's what we as a tour company have to contend with. So that's kind of my mindset coming into this. Dr. Johnson mentioned intangibles this morning. I said, okay, well, there's tangibles here. You just got to learn to sell it. And so Dan and I have spent hours, and actually his predecessor, who's now our COO, was our prior director of safety. So imagine that. So coming from the safety side to being the head of operations for a 11 aircraft company, it's pretty interesting situation for us to be in. But the first one, that's why we have our broker and insurance underwriters here, is it's a balance effect, but the soft underbelly is the reduction in insurance. I know that's kind of old hat, it's very disingenuous, but if it really is cultural, if it really is reflected in the organization, over time, the present value is there because you should see a reduction in insurance. I'm talking not just hull and liability, I'm talking workers' comp, vehicles. We carry a lot of, we armor up a lot on the vehicle insurance as well. So that goes to drivers and other functions within the company. So I'll just categorize it like that as reduction in insurance. And then incidents, you want to reduce frequency and you want to reduce severity, okay? So what kind of, and that's where workers' comp comes in. If somebody severs a hand versus just gets a cut on a finger, those are 2 different metrics right there. And then man hours. This is really more of an observation than anything else. But we have safety surveys before mechanics start work in the morning. And what we found is that instead of them, kind of doing the proverbial show up and smoke and joke for 15 minutes before they start working on the aircraft, they come in, they do their safety survey, and now they're focused on the job all of a sudden. So we found more efficiency within our workforce at a lower level. So that's a tangible. You can quantify that to some degree. It's kind of like professional athletes, as they prepare for a sporting event, they go through this routine before they get out on the field. It's really kind of the same thing. Once it's inculcated to their routine, then they've been far more efficient. Either that, or they know that I'm sitting over in the other room watching them, and they're just getting out of there so I don't get mad at them or something. I don't know. But that's also a reflection of the director of maintenance. That's on the maintenance side. Pilots have their own superstitions that I won't even go into today. And then, as Dan mentioned, the intangibles, the peace of mind, having been, and thankfully we can talk about that incident. The pilot ran out of gas. He shot a great auto rotation, at least. Everybody walked away. There was no long-term damage. It's a different conversation. We had a fatal back in 2003 timeframe that really scarred the company. And it hadn't been for a certain number of events that happened, probably would have gone under as a family business. So our owner is very receptive that the whole situation really, would set the stage right for us to say, safety is going to be a strategic priority for us. By the way, Dan does not answer to me. He answers to the Director of Operations, who's also the owner. So, yeah, there's no influence here. Even though he does have to ask for money. Let's see, and then Pride. Right after we had the incident, Hawaii's a very competitive market, and you get a lot of other pilots out there who, they kind of puffed up their chest like, oh, you guys had a guy who ran out of gas. That kind of sucked. So I don't want to go through that on a personal level ever again. Brand awareness and then exceeding safety expectations for high-end clients. We've flown foreign heads of state, high, tech industry executives that you can probably think of. Believe me, they check on us. They pull my background. They pull background for any other pilot in the company, and they know, and I would guess their life insurance people are probably background checking us too. And so when you have these bullet statements to answer that for us in the tour side, it's good for business, especially on the charter side, the highest margin stuff we do. All right. So I think I got this next one. All right. So, the briefing is translating, right? You got to get in front of an executive to ask for money to go and say, I need money to implement a safety management system or an SMS, or I need to bolster it with some cash. And so hopefully I'm give you these little bullet statements, little things you can kind of tuck away. A pet peeve of mine, as Dan alluded to, is cliches. Safety is revenue protector. That sends me vertical. I don't want to hear that. Sorry if you use that one, but it's a bad one. What I want to hear is I'm going to reduce workers' comp insurance, which is tied directly to payroll, through a reduction in the frequency and severity of incidents. That's a great way to put that one. I just thought of it just now. No, that ties directly to your CFO or your finance folks, because they're focusing on needle movers, the top 5 things, and I can guarantee you insurance is in that top 5. So you got payroll, insurance, maintenance, fuel, and financing activities, payments on the helicopters. All right, I'm just guessing that pretty much every industry is like that. So you hit payroll, you do some kind of reduction there, thank you. That's what I would love to hear. Insurance. We target 10% year-over-year reduction. Now, keep in mind we're growing by an aircraft per year, so the overall reduction is in the per capita, not in the gross amount. And at the end of that, and we'll get some perspective from the insurance industry, but nobody wants you to have a mishap-free incident over the course of a year more than the insurance company, because they get to keep all that money, right, if you don't have an incident. But if you have a good experience credit, you get some of it back at the end of the year, and that's how we were able to source Dan's safety program, was through the good experience credit, okay? So kind of dovetail a little on this, but if you really want to talk to CFO or the finance folks, go in and look at the insurance policies. If you can, pull those out and take a look at those, and get with the broker, get with the other guys, just to say, hey, I think I can. If you give me, you want ROI, you got to spend a little money to make a little money. You want an ROI? Well, I'm going to spend $10,000 to reduce our insurance payments by $100,000. Okay, and I wouldn't worry so much about percentages. I just work with firm dollar amounts, because it's just to me, that's what I like to hear. Just if I go into percentages, then I got to take off my shoes to count to 20 and all that stuff. So I just prefer to hear, here's the dollar amount that we're going to deal with. Then workers' comp. Yeah, I mean, everybody wants. There's a law of diminishing returns. You can only get down so much, but that's a huge thing, depending on your location, of course. Then safety. Safety is not in our top 5 expenses, but it touches every single one of them. okay? Our fuel burn, hey, if it's safer to shut down the aircraft, shut it down. If you've determined that it's a bad weather situation, the safe call is to not launch, you don't launch, you save gas. And then just kind of work in with those cost constructs to figure out exactly where the finance guy is going to have dollar amounts tied to those savings. And this is probably where, the last one is business safety goals must align. Your insurance policies, and your safety, I'll go with the safety plan first. Safety plans or safety management systems like a suit of armor, right? That's like the slide Dan showed. If it's too heavy, it's going to weigh you down. It's going to drag you down, and you're not going to be able to do anything. You'll become immobilized. If it's too light, you're going to have fatal flaws. So it's all about the balance in there. It's just like patents, too. That's where I stole that from patents. And then last but not least is third-party auditors. Trust me, you don't want to do it, but you need to. Okay, I'll just say that categorically, because you don't want to show anybody the workings of the company, because you got to be prepared for the answers to the questions that are going to be asked. But that as a higher level guy in the company, I just said, I don't want to go through another mishap like that. I want that peace of mind. So let's bring in an auditor who's going to ask the tough questions. But I honestly believe that validates everything that the people that are investing in you in the form of insurance policies are going to want to see. Okay, when I do insurance forms, there's a block on there that says, do you have a safety program? Sure. Is it a good one? Absolutely. And that's about it. Okay, the forms could probably be better, but when you write in there, well, our safety management system was validated by a third party. And we went with this BAO. Everybody know what this BAO is? Okay. We went with this BAO because it just seemed the most, kind of applicable in a global sense. I'll just put it that way. So, and the way that system is set up, you just have to keep progressing, or you actually fall backwards. And then just the timing worked out that we got the HAI audit thrown in there as well. So it's extremely valuable to have that third party that doesn't answer to the CFO, doesn't answer to safety. This goes, here's my report. I answer to a third party organization that does this constantly. And that, I think that just conditions management to look at it and accept those findings as something, if they're not able to improve, that something they accept as a risk moving forward, and at least they know that it's there. Okay, I think that's all I got. Any questions on it? All right. Now speaking of third-party auditors, Dan Serkan.
Thanks, Dan. So I got to be the guy with the black hat that came in and said, your baby's not as pretty as you thought it was. But that actually didn't happen because I worked with Dan for about a month doing the desk audit before we even showed up. The way I do audits is I like fixing everything before I get there so I can spend more time talking to the people. What did I find when I got there, though? Started right away. I had a meeting with the CEO, accountable executive. And what he told me was, I never want to go through what I went through again in 2013. So I researched all the safety programs out there and decided SMS is what we're going to use. So that was pretty good for me to know that right from top down, he's providing all the necessary resources to the safety program and actually paying for a safety officer in a small business. You don't see that a lot when you go out to small businesses. Findings weren't too many, 3 minor nonconformities. When you do an BAO audit, you can have your safety policy. You can have all the checks, like a lot of people talk about checklist mentality. But that might not answer the questions. I think one we found out was, is there a procedure to ensure that your safety policy is reviewed every year? Well, they had a safety policy, they just didn't have a procedure. So if any of you are going to go through his BAO audits or something, look at the questions, really get into them. If they're asking for procedures, make sure you have a procedure. What I also found was they had 250 safety reports in a year and a half. So how many people here think they produce that many in their SMS? So what does that show me? You got a pretty good safety culture going with that many safety reports coming in. Their CEO looks at all the safety reports and actually answers them to whoever submitted it. They have weekly newsletters or weekly emails that go out talking about all the safety reports. You have quarterly safety meetings. Their CEO is involved in all of it. So once again, that leads to a good safety culture. When I got there, I walked around and I literally had people coming up to me to tell me about what they think is safe in the company. Had one of your assistant-based managers tell me about how if she doesn't feel well, like she got sick one day, she actually filled out a risk assessment on her not feeling well, talked to the manager, and they came up with a plan that if that affected what she was doing that day, then she would go home. And guess what? They put in a wrong fuel load. She was in charge of that. So they write up a safety report, and she went home. And the rest of the company hears about this, and they do the same thing. When I went to Hilo Base, it's where your reservationists are. I walked in, didn't say who I was, just said, you just had an accident, what are you gonna do? Their reservationists knew exactly what to do, pulled out the checklist and went down it. It's a good safety culture. The culture, when I go out and I look, it's mostly people talk about pilots. I like looking at everything else. I like finding that administration shop, going out to the flight line, the refuelers, asking them questions. Everybody I talked to at Paradise knew how to do a report, where to find the information, and who to talk to about what they're doing. So that was kind of amazing to me. I did this a lot in the Marine Corps. I was in safety for 15 years in the Marine Corps, and nobody wants to put in a report, and nobody knows how to put in a report unless you're the safety guy itself. So it was pretty refreshing going into a small family business and knowing that everybody is trained up. And it was evident that they just didn't do that right before I got there. So found that to be rather refreshing. And then I got a lot of best practices from them on how they set up their safety reporting, how they look at it for safety performance indicators and targets. And it was just really good environment. They had me come back for the HAI, and a month later, it was pretty evident that they, what I saw in that first audit was still carrying through. Nobody was prepped and just left it again when I showed up. So I was pretty happy about that. And the operational and safety benefits of the SMS, well, we've been talking about that all day today, and we're going to talk about that all day tomorrow. So Darren already covered everything as far as the financial. But what I say about SMS is you can take safety off the front of it. It's a business improvement model. So you can take the 4 pillars of your SMS and put it into any scenario. Now, some people don't agree with me on that, but if I was running an administration shop, they all run on policy. If somebody has a better way of doing something, they suggest it, you put a control in place, and then you check on that control to make sure it's working. And then you communicate what's going on within that program. So that's what I think a good SMS is. So get rid of the word safety, use it in every aspect of your operation, and you'll be profitable. And your operations are going to work really well. But I think that's about it. Any questions on the ISBEO or the auditor part. Okay. So they were stage 2, so it took 2.5 days, full days to do the audit. The HAI took a full day because you got to do common standards and then their mission-specific part, which was air tour. I just did another one, stage 1, and HMSS HAI audit, and it took me 3 full days. So and that was with putting about 20, 25 hours ahead of time into the desk audit. So if you're thinking about doing these things, dedicate a lot of time to get ready for it and then to do it. How many hours did you put in?
A lot.
Before I even got there?
Quite a few.
Yeah, I think the client I just did there, stage 1 in HAI, said he put in over 44 hours before I even got there, so. But it's good because you find where the holes in the Swiss cheese are, and somebody else is looking at it, making sure that, you know, like I said, you think your baby's pretty, we're gonna find some little flaws and defects, and then we're gonna help you before, at least the way I do it, before I leave, we're gonna make sure everything is fixed. As long as the client is willing to do the corrections. So, and they were very willing, so. Anything else? Insurance. Rich guys.
I'm Jeff Gray. I'm the broker. I'm going to turn it over to Steve. But I'll say, going back to the accident, at that time, they had just a couple insurance underwriters interested in the operation of the loss. But with their commitment to safety and their willingness to not only do what they need to do, but then to repeat it. I mean, they're having another training session coming out in a couple months, so it's not just a one-time buy-in, it's a recurring theme. Now, just about every aviation insurance company out there wants a piece of it. And so, you know, that has a big impact on it. It also creates a level of trust. Swiss Re is the lead underwriter on it, and it's the kind of relationship that you really want between the insurance carrier and the operator, where there's that trust level, translates into insurance cost savings, operational flexibility. It's just a relationship that you should have.
Hi, everybody. I'm Paula Ryan. I head up Swiss Re's Aviation Department for North America. And when Dan and Darren asked me to get involved in this, we're trying to quantify, the value of SMS to an underwriter. I thought, put a little bit of time into it. And my own personal background, I'm a commercial pilot as well. So I've been an aviation underwriter for 22 years. And you're trying to put it all together. And I thought that, it's, typically the question is, well, how much am I going to save on my insurance program if I have an SMS? And what I would say to that is this, if the market's very small, there's only about a dozen aviation underwriters in North America, companies, and it's not like auto, where you've got hundreds of different options available to you. We take it very seriously, and we do talk about, as Jeff was saying, it's truly a partnership. And when you're looking at SMS, you have to, I believe, include your underwriters in that process. You have to understand that we are just there as a risk mitigation avenue for the company. We cannot touch on the intangibles. When you talk about a loss and, the value of, the downed machine and, the loss of goodwill, that's, unfortunately, we're not there for that. We're, our goal here is to indemnify you, to get you back whole, to get you back operational. And what does that mean from our standpoint? All of our the majority of our underwriters are pilots. We look at SMS, and believe me on one thing, if you're just checking the boxes, we'll know. We see every operator, commercial operator in North America, well, around the world. And I always maintain there's 3 things, doesn't matter if it's fixed wing or helicopter, there's 3 things that every commercial aircraft has to have to fly legally. And that is pilot, fuel, and insurance. One of the three. Now, some would argue with UAVs and all that, maybe we don't need the pilot going forward, but that's neither here nor there. But insurance is one of those three things. And to mitigate your cost is really what I would encourage everybody in this room is have a very strong dialogue with your broker. Make sure your broker is aware of everything you're doing, and make sure that your broker is getting that information to the underwriters. It doesn't matter if it's Swiss Re. You know, all of my competitors out there, a number of us that are here at this conference, you know, we look at it and we see the value of what you're doing. And it does translate. You know, and somebody said to me the other day, well, you know, again, how much is it going to save me? Well, how long is a piece of string? You know, it's not that easy to quantify. There's a million different factors that we look at when we're underwriting a risk. But I can assure you this, you know, a fully integrated SMS where the culture of the company is ingrained in it, we would definitely see it because we have the benefit of seeing, I hate to say it, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So once you've seen all of that, then you can see when Paradise, for example, had their incident, there's no issue. It's not from our standpoint, we look at it and said, well, you know, we're committed to these guys long term. And when I say we're committed, it's not just in insurance savings, it's, you know, being there, providing them peace of mind so that they can continue to grow and we'll be there beside them. So from that standpoint, hopefully you realize that it does have an integrated, you know, value. And I hope, like I say, that you're dealing with your brokers, that you're letting them know what you're doing and making sure that the underwriter sees that information because it will definitely pan out in the end.
I have a question.
Shoot.
Do things to fly?
Legally.
I'd sure like to have a mechanic in that on that.
Fair enough, yeah. We're assuming the aircraft is airworthy. Yeah. Yeah, we're assuming the aircraft's airworthy. But yeah, you need fuel, you need insurance, you need a pilot. So, but I will concede that, yeah. And your mechanic is just as important as a pilot is in our regard. So when we do an underwriting audit, you know, when we're coming in to see the visits, it's definitely, we're looking at the entire thing. We're looking at the booking procedure. And it's a simple thing, you know, when you've got a reservation, it's bringing somebody in and somebody's asking you to, you know, well, we need to be added as additional insured. Do they understand what they're, when you're agreeing to that? How that, you know, impacts your insurance program? You know, are you adding on risk that you don't even know about? So when we're looking at it, when we're doing our underwriting visits and our audits, these are the things that we're looking at. We may not tell you. You know, we're doing our own checks and balances. And again, we have the benefit of having a comparable that you guys don't see. You know, everybody in this room who's an operator knows, you know, within 500 miles of themselves, the good operators and the not so good operators. Unfortunately, you know, it's the law of large numbers, and unfortunately, it's the losses of the few that's paid for by the many. That is our insurance. That is what we do. You know, so it's our goal right here, though, is to find out, you know, who are the ones that aren't so good. And in this market, it's been very soft for a number of years. I'm sure everybody in this room, if they're involved in the insurance placement, has seen reductions in their premiums. But it's getting to a point where you may not even have the availability of insurance. And believe me, I've been around, like I say, doing this now 22 years, 24 years. There were times where you just could not get insurance and companies closed, consolidated. So it is, you know, it's a dynamic industry. It's a great industry, love it. And you know, I get to see guys in Hawaii, so I'll take those trips. But really, it's like I said, my whole takeaway is really just please, you know, engage your broker, let your broker know everything you're doing, and also ask, you know, challenge them. Ask your broker, well, what safety programs does my insurance company offer? They may have things on the books that are available to you that you don't even know about. You know, Swiss Re, we're a platinum sponsor of CHC, the summit. You know, we do this because we believe in getting everybody together and talking about safety. It's in our best interest.
A couple of questions. One of them was the goodwill credit as one of the tangible items coming back from insurance. Are you able to elaborate on that anymore about kind of what that looks like? Is there any sort of set, or is it more so, you know, reevaluate your operations at the end of the year and we decide we do it or we don't do it?
Yeah, so, I mean, there's typically two. There's two, I mean, I'll put it this, there's an NCB, which is a no claims bonus, or there's a PCOR, which is a profit commission on renewal, okay? These are the things that are negotiated upfront. Now, what I think Darren was talking is, he takes his piece, his profit commission credit, and he just gives it to the safety team. So if the team does well, they're gonna get a rebate on the insurance at the end of the year, and he just takes that and allocates that to his safety division, okay? The one thing I would say is, again, it's really broker-driven. Your broker will, it's a negotiating item with the insurance company. So depending on the company, depending on your SMS, depending on your operations, you may or not even get it. You know, we have clients where we say, no, we're not prepared to offer that rebate to them. So, but it is done in advance, and like I think Darren really just, he takes that money, instead of putting it into general revenue, I'm not speaking for you, but instead of putting it in general revenue, he just says, okay, that's allocated to safety.
Gotcha, so it's more of a custom negotiated item
Yeah.
for everybody's.
Correct, correct.
And don't let your marketing people know.
Exactly.
Closed door deal, it's,
Yeah.
you know, it goes, anybody else finds out about it, they try to raid for all kinds of junk gets dug up.
And if you are involved in the placement of the insurance, again, I would, you know, talk to your brokers and see if your insurance company has stuff to, you know, different programs that they can contribute in one way or another to your safety program. Because it's, again, I'll kind of leave it with, it's in our best interest, you know, to see you guys without incident, so. And believe me, the whole costs are not the ones that are driving, you know, the rates. It's really the liability, so it's, you know, we have no problem at all getting you whole, indemnifying you, getting you back up and operational as quickly as we can. What we can't control is the damage to your reputation. You know, and that's, and you know, in Dan's, you know, example there, really the intangible cost to a loss far exceed the hull in most cases. If you have a fatal loss, I can guarantee you, your intangible costs will far exceed your hull damage. You can drop $1 million machine like that, and it's nothing to what it will cost you over time. So have a close relationship with your broker, get to know your underwriters, and hopefully, and definitely, you know, maximize your, you know, the benefits that are available to you. There you go.
Thanks, Paul.
Dan, I got a quick question.
Yeah.
Have you seen, after the most recent losses, have you seen, you know, like American Express or Travelocity or Expedia, are they looking more for items that differentiate operators? Who has SMS, who doesn't? Are they instilling more vetting processes?
Right, so the question is, with the recent losses, I'm sure you've heard of the Genesis incident on Oahu. They operate a Bell 206, we fly Bell 407s. So absolutely, it had an effect on us. The SMS world isn't fully, I think, educated across the community. So we're trying to write a press release for being the first company in the world to achieve HAI. What's that mean to just somebody off the street? What's HAI? What's SMS? How do you explain that? How do you show the magnitude of what was just achieved? So it's kind of a difficult thing to explain that and to educate. But yeah, absolutely. We did feel the effects from it. We did receive phone calls. We did take a little bit of a hit in some of our growth opportunities in our daily operations. But that was where we were able to step back, and when we were challenged, we were able to talk about our safety program. We were able to talk about being the only company in the world to have HAI, the second company in the state of Hawaii to receive stage 2 for Isbeo, and talk about the importance of SMS. So that was a huge way to kind of separate us from the incident that took place.
So when you're doing the kind of education pieces, talking about the accreditation and things, are you more so selling that to your, I guess, to the vendors? Because like, you're not trying to educate Joe, citizen.
Right.
It's more of the people that are offering.
Absolutely.
Hotels.
Absolutely. So we released a general press release to our vendors, and then also we had it start to hit across the industry in some of the different news articles, but mostly to your vendors. That's where we see a strong push. And then we're able to put that cool little emblem on our website. Everybody's got those on there. But yeah, I mean, being able to say that, those are things that we can kind of gear towards for more direct bookings through our website, saying the first company in the world to achieve this. So that's how you kind of cater to that, but the vendors are where your majority, where you really can feed that information and educate, and then they're able to kind of just say, oh yeah, they got a really good safety program, because they don't really understand. But we still receive phone calls from high-end clientele that are requesting to fly with us. We actually had last week, and we had one of the resorts, they wrote a huge email about our safety program, sent it to the client before they were able to arrive to the resort, and they read through all of our credentials for our safety program, and then listed my number as a point of contact. And they came out, they had a great time, and they weren't concerned. So that was one of the benefits of that. So.
It seems like that's a good contagious thing. So you have that notoriety now. Your competitors now say, well, we sure as hell better get it as well.
Yes, sir.
And so what's good for one is good for all.
Right. Right, absolutely. Yeah, it holds everyone to a higher standard. When you see your competitor down the block starting to receive all these accreditations, everybody's going to strive to do the same thing. Which is ultimately the best thing for the industry. If helicopters aren't falling out of the sky and everyone's safe, that fear factor isn't going to be as intense as it may have already been. So, yeah, absolutely. So just going to wrap it up here. I know it's Aloha Monday here, and the drinks are on order, right? So before we get into this, the biggest thing is you can see the relationship that we have between our auditors and insurance. It's a great relationship. It's a working relationship. We're not afraid to challenge each other either way, and there's a benefit for everyone. So just a few of the takeaways. I try to put some dollar marks on there to kind of show, but your value in your business, being a locally owned business, that's huge. Being able to receive referrals, the brand awareness across the community. Should the owner want to sell the company, he has a very viable product that he can sell. He doesn't have a company that just had an accident. He has a company that's striving in the industry, being one of the best smaller companies in the industry for safety right now. But it continues to show growth, opportunities within the industry. We're able to take a small tour operator and start to expand. We just expanded recently to Lanai, the island of Lanai, and now we're flying tours off that island. Should you have an accident, all of those opportunities go away. You don't have the money now to go out and expand like that. Efficiencies in operations and cash flow, like I said, the ability to grow. Procedure effectiveness, you can't really put a dollar amount on that, but if you're going point A to point B to point C to point D, you have an employee doing all those things all day long. By being challenged and by doing some of these audits, what it's able to do is go from point A to point D, just a straight shot. You're not having to bring in all these different ways of trying to do something. You can really make your business more efficient, and that ultimately reducing your payroll. Reduced expenses, we talked about the insurance rate, safeguarding your expenses from accidents or incidents, that unknown, the insurance deductible and workman's compensation, fall protection, all those kinds of things, important things to implement. Stronger relationships, we talked about that between our vendors. If you're trying to make a deal, if you're a vendor and you're trying to sell a $20,000 helicopter charter, you're able to speak to that. Why should I go out and spend that money on a helicopter and go do all these things? Well, they're the best at what they do. They offer all these great catering things in these great places, but they also have an amazing safety program, amazing procedures, and their maintenance is to standard. So really great opportunities for the vendors to sell. Relationship with the insurance providers, we talked about that, and then recognition within the industry. That may not necessarily seem like that's important, but when it comes time for Bell helicopters, we're flying Bell helicopters, should we want to look at another aircraft, they're going to say, hey, they're doing a great job, they're flying these aircraft, X amount of hours. They're really flying a lot. They're putting themselves out there. They're introducing the aircraft to high-end clientele. We're seeing business. Maybe we'll cut them a deal. So where's the dollar amount on that, right? Trust in the organization. If you work for a company, can you imagine how defeated the company felt after an accident? Can you imagine having to come to work the next day and you're flying that another helicopter? Can you imagine you're questioning your maintenance, you're questioning everything at that point. The pride is not necessarily there. But by having a safety program, I had one of our ground crew members and said, hey, since we've been doing this safety stuff, it's amazing. I know what to do if there's an emergency. I never thought that was important, but now I get it. I know what to do. I know I can save someone's life potentially by reacting quickly. All important things that you don't realize until no one likes that change, but afterward you're reflecting, you're like, man, that was amazing. That's what we needed to do. Like I said, pride. And for us, peace of mind. A family-owned business. We want to have fun. We feel like what we're doing is all about having a good time and showing the beauty of Hawaii, having a great time showing the beautiful waterfalls, the lava. Everybody's out there to really experience that, to make some really memorable memories while they're in Hawaii. We want to share that. We want to have that. We want to be effective in what we're doing. We want everyone to be happy with what we're doing. We want the buy-in from the top to the bottom.
So how did you achieve that? Because that's probably what I noticed the most compared to other clients who've gone through SMS is the total buy-in company-wide. So how did you encourage that from top down?
Sure. So, for us, it started with Calvin Dorn, the owner of the company, saying, we need to change this. And, we implemented the SMS. So we start growing, we start developing, we start implementing these procedures, we spend the money, we get the training, and all along the way, he's supporting you 110%. And so that's where we noticed, and within our organization, when something happened, Cal would be like, hey, did you fill out a hazard report? How are we going to fix that if you don't fill out a hazard report? Okay, so then they go to the computer, they fill it out, and then we make it a point to correct the issue and mitigate it to whatever level we can do. And what that's doing is it's supporting the SMS program you have. You're supporting, you're encouraging, you're rewarding. We have quarterly safety awards, and really starting to show the value in what you're doing, show how the company is getting better, it's getting safer, it's getting stronger. The other day we had a maintenance personnel wrote that he accidentally left a rag in the transmission area while he was doing something. And came back, they were doing a normal check, realized it, the aircraft didn't go anywhere, but reported himself for it. Who would do that, right? Who's gonna want to dime themselves out like that? That's huge. That's huge. So from there, you continue to adjust your procedures, see what went wrong, training, and that's how you get better. That's how you really face those problems. Within any organization, you're going to do something wrong. People are going to make mistakes, and it's all how you as leaders are able to take that and learn from it and highlight it. And everybody will know about that incident, and everybody will know what new checks are going to take place and how we're going to improve and how we're not going to let that happen again, which has already taken place. We're not going to show discipline, and we're not going to hurt somebody from reporting and not being proactive. So that's how you encourage, you promote, you reward, and ultimately the value of the business and the safety of the program will increase. I had a quick video. I don't know if someone may be able to help here. Any questions for me? Well, I hope we're able to kind of show you from a different perspective how SMS has been beneficial to us from a smaller kind of company standpoint. It's slide 3. How we were able to take something that probably in the past would not have been possible and able to implement an effective program, save money while we're doing it, and really just build that just culture, that teamwork within the organization. So thank you very much. We'll try to get this to go here.
This is it right here?
Yep.
Is this actually just the link?
It was playing.
But you guys weren't getting any audio. Interesting.
I think if you do the Alt-Tab, this thing, and switch it to...
I'm just trying to get this link because we can just put that in
Okay.
YouTube right now, but I just can't get it over here. It's in your presenter notes. You know how to pull these up for me?
See real quick. Right here.
Yeah, if you get that, and we can just plug that in, and everything will be crazy.
Here, I'll let you do it. Sorry about that. We had it working a minute ago, and naturally. Here we go. Yeah. Thanks so much for your time. Appreciate it.